a lack of commitment in the traditional sense between the father and the son. Connor, as evident when it was showtime, when the mom is like, "Nah, we're not staying in this house," and Connor was like, "Yeah, we can't stay here." You see Nash have a breakdown. He's literally crying, and he's like, "Look, I put in all this
Yeah.
work, and only thing I'm asking for is to have you with me. I'm not asking you to pay the
Yeah.
mortgage. I'm not asking you to pay the light
Yeah.
bill. I'm not even asking you to cook. I don't care if you bake me chicken or fry me chicken. I'll do
But
that."
he's making no.
He could remember he was happy to come home with the steak.
Yeah.
Remember, he was like, "I got
Yeah.
steak."
He would. Yeah. But it's like that's the thing. I mean, in the he's becomes the quasi like the husband to the mom, right? And that's not the
Mhm.
relationship that he should have with her at that stage, right? And I think that like as you said from the beginning, these movies all have this part of it, like the impact of having the father and the impact of the absence of the father. And in this
Mhm.
movie, in that space, that's kind of where Rick Carver comes in. Because at first Rick Carver
Yes.
comes in as kind of like almost like a not sociopathic, but just like very detached from people and very detached from the personal
Mm.
things of people.
So you're saying like a misanthrope?
Something like that. Yeah,
Mm.
something like that.
Okay.
I just didn't use that fancy of a word, but yes. Yeah, something like that, right? But then during the course of the movie, you do see him sort of bring Dennis under his wing. And he starts trying to create ways for Dennis to make money, take care of himself, and start to build wealth, if you will say, build wealth in America, right? He tries to give him some game, right? And the most, I would say the big thing is like, don't get emotional about real estate.
Line from Rick
Don't get
himself.
emotional about real estate. It's a box.
It's just a
It's a
box.
box with stuff in it, and there's a bunch of
Rick
boxes with
again.
stuff in it, and you can go live in
Rick
one of those
again.
other things. So I think like Rick becomes like the quasi father figure for Dennis.
As definitely a
Yeah, and
mentor
he and
at the
he's
very
like
least.
showing him like this is what it means to take care of this situation in a different way. Because once and we talked about this before, but once Dennis decides I want to be on your team, Rick, I want to know how you do things. He's like, cool. But then you over here now you're in a different world. And in this world, we operate completely differently. So like that way that you were working, that's not going to work over here. This is the different rules. This is the gutter. In the gutter, we don't mess with that. So it's just an interesting movie because there is this push and pull and tug for Dennis's character between obviously the example that his mother sets and the example that Rick is setting, and you see it kind of play out over the course of the film.
But I think that the problem with that is Rick had decades in the
Yeah,
game. Like he tells you, like as you eloquently told me in the pre-production meeting, that was his villain
yeah, he
origin
tells us.
story.
He
My
tells you.
dad fell off
Yep,
the
he tells
roof,
you.
broke his back. Like he
He tells you.
tells you
Yep.
how he got down and became the person that he became. But I would argue that just merely that merely woke him up. It was a slap in the face. It was the proverbial wet
Mhm.
blanket or the cold water thrown on him to alert him like, no, it's game time. This is what the world will
Yep.
give you when you do fall on hard times, or this is how we're all one check away, or as the Joker says,
One
one
bad day.
bad day
Mhm.
away from losing your
Yeah.
sanity. I think that what happened though with Dennis was he was still fresh.
Yeah.
There was no way that he could become Anakin Skywalker slash Darth
Hmm.
Vader in the span of 2 hours of
Yeah. Of
this
course.
movie.
Of
I
course.
mean,
Yeah.
of course, the movie talks about this as a
Yeah.
months long period, but Rick, like I said, has been in this since like teenager,
Yeah.
adolescent. Like he saw this firsthand. Like, nah, and he tells you that's not going to be me.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that, you know, he has become so disenchanted and disillusioned that now he's just
Yeah.
callous. He tells you, yo, I haven't been out with my family in years without my
Yeah.
gun.
Yeah.
That's
That's
why I always
crazy.
bring
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, so you're right. So I think that that's a good point about the idea of how long Rick Carver has been Rick Carver, right? He's been that way for a long time. I would say that that's what all mentors, what we try to do is help to get you where we got faster than we did.
Mm,
Like if you ever mentored a young person, it's like, yo,
yeah.
you don't, yo,
You don't have a
see,
lifetime
right,
to make the mistakes I
right.
made.
CJ did that, so hopefully you won't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, don't do that. I already made that mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we're trying to do. So that like good mentorship actually is an accelerator program for your life.
Mm,
Because if Dennis had to try to get to where Rick was without Rick's help, he wouldn't get there. He
mm.
wouldn't have had the money. He wouldn't have had the money in his hand. He wouldn't have figured out how to run the illegal air conditioning swimming pool pump business on the side. His friends wouldn't have been getting money too. Like, his one friend said somebody getting pregnant tonight. That wouldn't have happened. Lives like none of this stuff would have happened if he didn't have to rely on Rick giving him some game. So, like I'm just saying that part to say is like that also is a part of mentorship. And the one thing about masculinity and about how I think boys have grown to manhood is that we are attracted to whatever is the most compelling and most consistent representation of manhood that we see. And people
Mm.
always say, like in neighborhoods, like, yo, why do all the kids listen to or follow like the neighborhood drug dealer or neighborhood gangster, whatever? That person is compelling because they're there. They're like, they have degrees of all the characteristics that this society says men should have, and they're consistent. They're
Mhm.
grinding. They're on it. They're doing it every day. It's not a point in this movie that Dennis sees Rick and Rick is not well dressed and talking about business.
He's charismatic. He's very
He's
persuasive.
there. He's
He's very
present.
direct, matter of
He is
fact.
present.
And quite frankly, I think he's honest.
Yeah.
I would argue that through his deceit, he tells you who
Yeah.
he is. Yo, I use anything exposure, at my ability to get my hands on. I use
Yeah.
it, and I will use it. I'm using
Yeah.
you. I told you.
Yes.
I'll pay you fifty
Yeah. Yeah.
dollars
Yeah.
to take
If I
out
could
that.
pay you
And I
less, I would
asked you.
have.
I would have. I tell you this. So I can. I think most people can respect
Yeah.
that because you give them the option of
Yeah.
engaging. You make them fully aware. You're not hiding. It's not like I'm shaking your hand with the right and stabbing you with the
Yeah.
left. It's everything is up front. And I think that also ties into the fact of a house versus a home. You make a great point with respect to the group dynamic and what it means to be a man or masculine or a male in these confines. And I think that has something to do with the fact that one, both of them are
Yeah.
fathers, but one is a dad, one is present,
Mm-hmm.
one has made his home, made his house or his residence into a
Mm-hmm.
home. As you told me during the pre-production meeting, um, you know, house is where family is. And Rick tells you from the rip, this is just a
Yeah.
box. It's four
Mm-hmm.
walls. And I got plenty of boxes. And I'm just relocating from next to the
Mm-hmm.
next. And he has a mistress.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an adulterer. And he tells you, like, look, yeah, I got my kids and we go out, we do the family
Mm-hmm.
thing. But, we don't go out that often because I'm
Yeah.
strapped. And he tells his wife in that one scene, like, hey, look, she's like, I should divorce you. He's like, you wouldn't do that. And he's like, look, you wouldn't get as much money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm, you wouldn't have the lifestyle that you like to lead, and you would be losing all these other fringe benefits just by being associated
Yep.
with me. Nah, you got to stay right here. And she smiles, laughs, and kisses him and says, "You're
Yeah.
right." And there's truth to every
Yeah.
joke. So therefore, you've known that they've had this discussion before.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting what you think you're going to get, especially in
Yeah.
Florida. Oh no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I'm Rick Carver.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Rick is like you said. Rick is honest. He's honest,
Mhm.
and he's because he's honest. He's giving everyone around him, including his wife, the option of choosing to continue to be in the game with him. And if you choose it, this is what it looks like.
This is what comes with the
This is what it
territory.
is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the fact that the mom in this case, Vern, I think her
Yeah,
name
Vernon.
is. The fact is that she is so naive and so aloof as far as what it really means to be in the real world. I think the fact that she is a hairdresser shows that she's a very caring and loving
Mm-hmm.
person, very nurturing. And that's echoed with her relationship with
Mm-hmm.
Connor as his
Yep.
grandmother slash surrogate mother. And I also see how it's a delicate balance as to how she still says, like, yeah, Dennis is still my son, yet I rely on him in a way that stereotypically most traditional women rely on the men in their lives who fulfill those
Yeah.
roles. From a personal account, I have plenty of family members who uh, cherish the time where their fathers would still give them an allowance. which up until the point where even when they were married.
Yeah.
And that's just from a personal recollection. And I think that speaks to her as an individual, or the character she's trying to
Mm-hmm.
portray in this film, where there is a reliance, there is an underbelly of individuals like her who, they just leave it to the men in their lives or to whomever. They'll handle
Yeah.
it somehow, some way. She even echoed that when the police came to her home. And like she said, when they're like, you got to leave, she's thinking like, how am I going to get these items? And I'm forgetting something. And she's worried about coffee and the
Yeah.
toaster.
He's
And he's
toaster.
like, will you just let her get the toaster?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with the toaster?
Yeah.
You don't have an outlet at this
Yeah.
point. What are you going to do with the toaster?
I'm definitely going to revisit that when we get to the hate, because there's something that you mentioned there that I want to bring up. just so,
I would also,
just so you know.
I'll remind you, because I can only see where this is going, and I'm waiting in anticipation to see where you